Hi, my name is Beth and I'm the sewing pattern designer and blogger at Sew DIY. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a full bust adjustment to the Lubox top. If you haven't watched it already, I recommend that you go back right now and watch the selecting your size, measuring yourself video. I will put a link to it down in the show notes because you're going to need two measurements. You will need your full bust or bust measurement and your upper bust measurement. Now, if the difference between those two is 4 or more inches, then you're in the right place, and I recommend that you do a full bust adjustment to your pattern. If you don't have 4 or more inches of difference between those two measurements, then you do not need to make a full bust adjustment. So because the Lubox top pattern is designed to be used for woven or for knit fabric, I'm going to show you two different ways to make a full bust adjustment. One will add a dart into the pattern, which means there will be a little folded triangle in the side that will create more shape in the pattern. And I recommend doing this for woven fabric. The other way is a very similar process, but then you eliminate that dart and there's no dart at all. There's just added fullness in this area that will help accommodate your bust. So the great thing, or kind of the cool thing about a full bust adjustment, is that it keeps the shoulders all the same size, but then it just creates more fullness for your bust area. It really customizes a pattern. It's a change or an adjustment that I have to make to a lot of patterns. So it's a really great thing to learn how to do and great to practice doing it. You can use this method for a lot of other patterns, not just for the Lubox top. It's a really universal way to adjust sewing patterns to fit your body. Let's get started. So to make your full bust adjustment, you'll want to print out your pattern according to your upper bust measurement. And then for tools, you'll need a ruler, some scissors, tape, a pen, and some tracing paper. So for this example, I'm going to pretend that we have a bust measurement of 48 inches and an upper bust measurement of 43 inches. So the difference between those two is 5 inches, which means that we do want a full bust adjustment. Now this pattern is designed with a C cup, which is for a 3-inch difference between upper bust and bust. So if we take that difference, we still have 2 inches that we want to add to our pattern. Now because we are only adjusting half of the front of the pattern, we will divide that by 2, and we need a 1-inch full bust adjustment. Let's start by doing a full bust adjustment with a dart. So let's mark our bust point, and then we will draw a line down to the hem that is parallel to our center front. We also need to draw a line to mark the sleeve. So this is just lined up with the side seam. And then we need to make a triangle. So one point will be just below this sleeve, and then one in the middle. So we'll draw lines from the bust point to those 2 points. And then our last line is going to be parallel to the hem. All right, now we can start cutting this up. So first we want to just cut off our little baby sleeve and set it to the side. And then we're going to cut up from the bust point, up to the bust point, cut all the way through it, and leave a little hinge at that end. Then we're going to cut this line and leave a little hinge at the bust point. And then we're going to cut this off, but don't quite set it aside. Keep it nearby. So I'm going to put this on top of a piece of scrap tracing paper. Then I'm going to line it up with the grid lines on my cutting mat. I find that this is really handy because I can use the lines as a guide and make sure that everything stays parallel and lined up. We are making a 1-inch FBA, so we want to move this piece 1 inch away from this line. And we need to keep these two lines parallel to each other. So we can use our grid and just move it 1 inch away. And you want to also pull it down so that you can keep this pattern piece flat. Because if you have it up here, then it's not flat anymore and you can't cut that out. So you just need to bring it down, keep it 1 inch away, and just tape that in position. And then you bring your little hem piece and bring it over and line it up with the bottom here and tape that in place. And now this is going to be our new dart. I'm going to fold this dart like we would if we sewed it. Okay. And then I'm going to cut right here, and this will give us our little dart allowance. All right, now our last step is to bring our little sleeve back in and tape it in place. Okay, so now you can just cut this out and use the pattern as is, or you can trace it and you'll have a new pattern. And when you cut it out, you will add your hem piece on to match whatever hem style you want to do. And you shouldn't need to make any changes to the back pattern piece. Now let's do a full bust adjustment without a dart. So for this one, I've gone ahead and attached my hem pattern piece, because when you do this adjustment, it will adjust the curve of the hem a little bit, and it's also going to add some length, so we'll need to watch out for that. So just like before, we're going to draw in some lines. So let's draw this for our sleeve. We will estimate our bust point and draw that in, and then draw a line down to the hem. From there, draw a line perpendicular for our length adjustment, and then put our 2 dots in and draw our triangle. Okay, now we can get our scissors and cut off the sleeve, and then cut this front. I'm going to add a piece of tape. Okay, leave that little hinge, and then cut and make that hinge. And we'll bring our scrap, another piece of scrap paper over. So again, I'm going to use the grid on my cutting mat to help me. And so I'm going to move this piece down, and this is my 1-inch FBA. So this is just the same as with the dart. Oh, I forgot to cut this piece. All right, now we'll bring this piece down and line it up with the lower position of our right side. tape that in place. And now we're going to do something different than we did last time. And we're actually going to untape this bottom wing. So I have this piece loose and this is stable, and I'm going to keep that pivot point and move this up here, and then I'm going to pivot from here and move this piece at an angle until it is parallel with our center front line. And now I'm going to tape it down. So this kind of created the dart and then removed the dart, and you can see that we now have more space right in this middle. So now we'll want to bring our sleeve back in, and we'll tape this in place. And let's tape this down, and then we will need to redraw this hem. And so you can just freehand it, draw it in there. I'm missing a little bit of paper right there. But just draw that in and then cut out along your new lines. Sometimes this adjustment can create additional length on the side seam. So if that happens for you, you may need to increase the side seam length on your back pattern as well. So that's just something to look out for. It's not happening here because we have this curve, but just be careful about that. Okay, let's look at our two FBAs side by side. So here we can see that both of them have added fabric into the center part in the bust area and a little bit into this sleeve area. And they've also both added some length. So this is going to help with the way that a fuller bust will lift up this piece of fabric, and the fuller bust will like lift up the hem, and it just needs a little bit more room in these areas. So if you are sewing a woven fabric and want to add a dart, this is a great way to go. But if you are sewing a knit fabric, or if you just don't want a dart, you can use this method. Well, I hope that video was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And if you haven't already, you can hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell to make sure that you get notified when there are new videos. Happy sewing!